All right, let's make some money here, team. Ben Eisler, get hot in the playoffs. We're going to start with Cincinnati and the Raiders. A lot of people are giving the Raiders a shot here. The Bengals are a 6-point favorite at home. The number is 49. Welcome to a home game for Cincinnati. You got to love it. Ben, you're riding with Joe Burrow here. Where are you going?
I want to ride with Joe Burrow, but they've played in a lot of close games, and the Raiders have actually been one of the better close team games in the NFL. When the game gets very close, they've won every game they've played in overtime this year. And it just seems like for whatever reason, they'll make some key plays and some big stops. Now, they didn't do it to get into overtime against the Chargers. They let them right back in the game. But I think the Bengals will win. I just think it'll be closer than most people anticipate. I think the Raiders are going to ride that high a little bit, keep this game more interesting than they probably should. I mean, we've buried the Raiders multiple times on this very show, and they somehow continue to rise up from the dead. So going to Cincinnati, I think it's going to be a fantastic atmosphere. I just don't see a scenario in which the Bengals, because of some of their issues, especially in the defensive side of the ball in their secondary, end up just completely containing the Raiders. I think they're going to run the ball on them. I think they're going to keep it close. They're going to slosh it up. I'll say the Raiders cover the 6.
I agree with all that. I think the Raiders will cover. I think it will be close. I would not be surprised if the Raiders win. Now, I did mention, Ben, before you came on, Carr is awful in bad weather. Awful. He's never won a game under 35 degrees, and it's supposed to be 27. So does that matter? I think it does. I think mentally it does. They're on the road. They're a warm weather team. They're a dome team. You're going to Cincinnati. Now, the flip side of that is neither one of these teams have ever been here. The Bengals haven't won a playoff game since 1991. Okay, excuse me, since 1990, January of 91, the 1990 season. The Raiders have not won one since 2002. So you have two teams. No, the coaches have never been to a playoff game. The quarterbacks have never been to a playoff game. Carr got his team to the playoffs once. But he didn't play because he was hurt. Like, this is a game where I think anything's possible because you don't know how these teams are going to react to this. The game, in my eyes, the biggest matchup in this game, can Max Crosby and Yannick Ngakoue force a turnover or two with Burrow? They are going to hit him. They're going to get pressure. The Bengals' offensive line is brutal. You know, Crosby this year, TJ Watt we'll talk about here in a second. He's had an unbelievable year, right? 22.5 sacks, all-time record, the whole deal. Crosby, I believe it is, has 40 more pressures than TJ Watt this year. Like, that feels impossible, and yet it's true. So the Raiders are going to get pressure. Can they turn that into a couple of big mistakes by the Bengals? But I like the Raiders to cover, the Bengals to win, and the over to hit. I think this is easily going to hit over.
We haven't seen Joe Burrow back on the field since he left the field, so I am curious what kind of condition Burrow is actually in. I'm assuming he's fine, but it'll be interesting to see what he and the other part of this, just the mental side. To me, the Raiders are playing with house money. You weren't supposed to be here. You should be flowing in here like, hey man, let's roll. We're Cincinnati. Your season, whether it's successful or not, this is it. It's a little more on you. Go ahead.
I'm gonna add one more thing real quick. As somebody who has intimate history with this feeling, Chiefs couldn't win a playoff game forever. And let me tell you something. If something went wrong in one of those playoff games over those 22 years, they couldn't win a playoff game. You just started to clench as a Chiefs fan. You knew, like, oh God. Like, block punt, miss a field goal, whatever. Bengals fans, it's been literally 30 years since they've won a playoff game. If anything goes wrong early in that game, the energy in that stadium is going to be panic. And that's a real thing. Like, that's a palpable feeling. I actually think in a weird way, being at home for them, like, look, you want to be at home. But if they get down 10-3, and they're not looking like they normally do, and they drop a pass on Thursday, you're going to hear it. You're going to feel it through the screen that there's nervousness in Cincinnati. I've been there. Believe me. Like, that's a real thing.
100%. And people talk about, there's curses, most famously, I guess, with the Cubs in baseball. It's not a curse. There's a real extra pressure when you're playing for an organization that has not won in a long time. The player, these are human beings. It's talked about. The fans feel it. It is an energy, as you just outlined Verderame that actually exists. I mean, it's very real. So you have to have, which is a part of the thing for me with organizations that haven't won in a while. You better have players who can handle that when you at least consider it when you're bringing them in, because they're going to have to deal with it. Speaking of dealing with the extra pressure, by the way, is the Bills at home with New England and staring. You don't see Tom Brady, but you do see Bill Belichick, and of course, here comes Mac Jones. Buffalo's a 4.5-point favorite here, Ben. 43. People are expecting a low-scoring game.
Yeah, I think that's probably the play. Although the weather is supposed to be fairly reasonable in Buffalo for this game. If we're going to talk about it in Cincinnati, we should definitely talk about it in Buffalo too. Right now, it's supposed to be in high 20s, sunny, winds upwards of maybe 8 to 10 miles per hour. That's a very good day in Buffalo in January. And that should play into the Bills' favor. But think about this. I was looking over some of the recent against the spread trends for some of these playoff teams. Pittsburgh we'll talk about in a second as far as their ability as an underdog, but as an away underdog going all the way back to 2003, the Patriots have only been underdogs. This is crazy to me. They've only been underdogs on the road 43 times in almost 20 years. That's insane. And to factor that up, they're 26-16-1 against the spread as an away underdog, covering about 62% of the time. They went to Buffalo, beat them last time. I know that they're struggling coming into this game, but they're going to slash it up, and it's going to be another low-scoring game. I think they're going to make some adjustments. Bill Belichick, one of those coaches that you don't want to play for a third time. You don't often want to play him a second time, but a third time, I think you give the edge back to him. So rather than focus on a team here, I'll lean on the under of 43. It's going to be one of those games where you go back and forth for a little bit, but there's not going to be a lot of offense in this game, considering Buffalo has that ability to be explosive. The Patriots are going to take that explosiveness away, even in weather that's conducive to them having some success. So I like the under.
So on Saturday night, the forecast on the Weather Channel, it's going to be 3 degrees in Buffalo. Now, there's not going to be a lot of wind. It's about 30% chance of snow.
Heisler's fired as a weatherman. He's officially out. I mean, what type of weatherman is this?
Then my sources are pretty terrible. I have it set where it's going to be 29 in that matchup, but that clearly is not right.
It is a high of 9 in Buffalo on Saturday, and it's a low of 3. Look,
back the under, back the Patriots.
I mean, I am taking the under and the Patriots all day long. I don't know if the Patriots will win the game, but I think they have a real shot to. And I will tell, and we've been talking about this game a lot, so I won't stick on it forever. If I'm a Bills fan, this game terrifies me. This is a team, and Carm, you said that they maybe would not want to play them more than anybody else, and maybe you're right. Like, Mac Jones doesn't scare me at all, but them running the ball does, and 3 degrees with Josh Allen does, because Josh Allen in cold weather has not been good. He has not been good. They look so uncomfortable. That's one of the things I will say that amazes me with Aaron Rodgers and Lambeau. Like, it never phases him. He just looks fine in it. Doesn't matter. California guy, doesn't matter. Mahomes, Texas kid in Kansas City. They have played in some bad weather in the playoffs, and it has not affected him at all. It makes no difference. It affects Buffalo. It has affected them. They have not been good when it's been windy. Now, it's not supposed to be windy on Saturday night, but it's supposed to be brutally cold. That favors New England. If you are Buffalo, you're dying for a game in the 30s, 40s, 50s if you're Buffalo. It's going to be 3. And I will tell you, as someone who went to school in that area of the country, the snow forecast, wake me up on Saturday morning, because all it takes is something coming in off the lake, and you could go from, it's not going to snow, to 10 inches in a heartbeat. Like, I lived it for 4 years. So it'll be very interesting. I think the Pats cover the spread, and I think with 5 minutes left, everybody is having a heart attack at the Bills game. I think that is going to be a very, very good matchup, a fun one. And Cheeto Freak, yes, here comes I walked to school uphill both ways in the snow. I'll tell you what, I actually walked backwards a lot of times in Oswego when I went to school, because the wind coming off the lake was so hard. This is true. You guys, maybe everyone went to school in that area, that if you walked into it, it was like a suction over your face. So to breathe, you either have to cover up your face or you can just walk backwards. And a lot of kids go up there, they just walk backwards. And sometimes you actually really would genuinely do that. Thank God, though, shout out to Oswego for building underground tunnels so you could walk on the campus in the winter underground. Because up overground, oh my God, forget it. But it was hell, a lot of fun. Great parties in Oswego. And then they gave me a degree too, so I win.
6 degrees of radio separation, by the way. When I was leaving Chicago radio, I went and interviewed in Buffalo for a gig that paid $200 a week doing updates, and I was going to take the gig, but they wouldn't give it to me. And they said, "Hey, there's a gig in Kansas City that's available. Why don't you go interview for that?" Which I did, and then I got, which makes me a secondary Chiefs fan. And then Heisler eventually took that job, so I don't know if he goes to that job if I wasn't in that job. 6 degrees of radio all the way through. And my point being, to bringing it up, Buffalo, I love you Bills fans. Matt Timon, number one, former intern of mine, who's got the Bills are going to make you want to shout as his ringtone on his phone. I don't know if you ever heard that song. I mean, it is a beauty when that thing goes off in the office. You guys are great fans. That city, that's a tough look. It was like when I went to visit, I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I can live here. This is, and I feel like I can live anywhere.
You have to embrace it.
I mean, Buffalo is another level. All right, let's get back on track here. I could live in Tampa Bay, by the way, who's hosting Philadelphia. What a transition. Good job, Carm. Bucks and Eagles in Tampa, a heavy favorite here. 9-point favorite, 49 the number. You give the Eagles a chance to cover here, Ben?
Not particularly. It's a great opportunity for Brady, who's been so good at home. He gets to play in the early afternoon game where he's been dominant throughout the course of the season. He's struggled occasionally in covering when it comes to night times. I don't know if that's a 44-year-old thing that's been joked around for Tom Brady, but early afternoon in his home stadium where he's 6-2 against the spread, margin of victory has been fairly solid. And here's what the Eagles do best. They run the football, and that's also the way that the Bucks slow down everybody. Now, it's not to say that Hurts can't go downfield. They still have Devontae Smith. They still have some weapons, but it's nowhere close to what they want to do. And that's their biggest threat, and that's what's allowed them to be really successful in the second half of the season. Their run game has opened up everything. So I think Tampa Bay blows them out. It's a nice story for the Eagles. Nick Sirianni in his first year, who from the moment he spoke at that opening press conference, I thought, oh boy, these guys are doomed. Did not go over well. But credit to him, credit to Jalen Hurts for having a very solid full first year. And now they get the chance to play Tampa, which is just the wrong matchup in the wrong stadium and at the wrong time. I like Tampa Bay to cover this number. I'd probably bet it up to 10.
I'd probably bet it up to 14. I think the Bucks.
You don't have to.
Yeah, I think the Bucks are going to win this game going away. I could make a case for the Eagles to keep it close. One of these games where the Bucks are beat up offensively. Maybe they bog down here or there, and it's one of these games where it's like 27-19. I mean, you can make that case. I won't. I think the Bucks win handily. I think it's more something like 27-13, 27-10. Ben, you said it right. Look, they have to run the ball to win. But against Tampa, it's a death sentence. You just cannot run against that front. They've been more susceptible to the run this year than people think. But they're still a hard team to run against. And the Eagles just don't threaten you. Like Sirianni, if they're going to have any shot in this game, they've got to completely change who they are and throw the ball all over the place. And I just don't think that suits Hurts. They've not won one game this year. Not one game against a team with a winning record. Now, I will say, they played Tampa earlier this year. And they hung around in the game. They were outplayed. They hung around in the game. So for the Eagles, it at least gives you some confidence going in there that, like, hey, we've seen these guys. And we saw them when they were a lot healthier than they are now. And we were in that game with 5 minutes to go. So it does give you some confidence. But I think it's one of those games that's a little bit, a little touch and go early. And then Brady just kind of marches them down the field. They get a turnover. They score again. And then away they go.
The public loves the Bucks, but they don't love them the most of any team in the playoffs. Do you guys want to, at least Carm Sources, the website that I look at for the public, who do you think the public loves the most this weekend?
Kansas City.
Yeah, that's got to be it. And I'll get to a pretty good stat about Pittsburgh coming up, but I would say the public is all over Kansas City this week.
So the public likes 55% of the bets are on 56% of the bets are on KC. So not correct. The public loves the Bills. which I find interesting.
That is interesting. Like maybe it's because the number's smaller, 4.5. It's one of the smaller spreads. But man, I gotta tell you, if I was a big gambler, I would have I think the Bills are the better team. I would have deep reservations knowing Belichick is just sitting there and it's the third time he's seen this team and it's going to be 3 effing degrees out. Like I would have deep. Can't you just picture on Saturday night CBS showing Belichick on the sideline with like 12 minutes to go and like everybody's huddled up like looking like they're gonna die, and Belichick's just like red in the face, just kind of with that grin, just staring out at the field, and you're like, oh my god, like the man's not human. You can just see it coming.
For us contrarians out here, it's a lot easier to say New England than it is to say Pittsburgh and or Philly, despite the points. But if I'm betting this weekend, which I will be betting on. I'll probably take the Eagles over and not the Steelers, but I got to think about it. Not going out on a limb right now. I'll have to figure that one out. Giving myself some time. All right, Dallas is a 3-point favorite, Ben, at home with a 51-point number. Here come the Fighting 49ers. It's interesting to me. Trey Lance is playing better than Jimmy Garoppolo right now. What are you going to do, San Francisco? How do you see this one, Ben?
I mean, I was advocating for Trey Lance to play in Week 18, and good for Jimmy G for being able to lead him down that drive. I thought Trey Lance should have been playing through most of the season, and so far I've been proven wrong throughout that point. I think the 49ers are live here. They're playing incredibly tough. Matchup, I think, very well with Dallas, and the 49ers actually gained the most yards per play than any team in the league, that coming from our own Ian McMillan over at BetSided. In Dallas, for as many times as they've taken the ball away on defense, Trayvon Diggs has gotten shelled as well in coverage. He's had a lot of struggles. He's given up a ton of yards. I worry if he gets matched up with somebody like Deebo Samuel. They've really started to take advantage of some deep routes downfield. Samuel is being used all over the field. I just think they match up very, very well. And the 49ers are I think, even though they're a dominant running team, I like them indoors. I like them in a dome. I think they can take advantage of that speed. And I don't know if the Cowboys are going to be able to stop them. And I also like Kyle Shanahan to make more adjustments than Mike McCarthy. So I think this is your big upset of the week. I like the 49ers, not just to cover the number, but I like a money line as well.
Well, this is boring. I'm with Mr. Heisler here. I think the Niners are going to win the game. The Cowboys have beaten nobody this year. Since week 2, they beat the Chargers. They've beaten nobody. The Pats in an overtime game, fine, but certainly not overly excited about the Cowboys. Look, the Cowboys' offense, unless it's been against Washington or Philly, down the stretch has been really mediocre. It's not terrible, but really mediocre. I think the Niners win the game. I think, look, Samuel's, to me, the best weapon in the game. Kittle's a great player. You know that the Niners are going to run the ball. You know they're going to. I like them. I think they win the game.
All right, 2 more. Pittsburgh and Kansas City. There is nothing more painful in the NFL right now than watching Ben Roethlisberger throw the football. I mean, is that 5 miles an hour, 3 miles an hour? I mean, somehow they're there.
It's a helium ball.
I mean, it is like and full body effort too to get whatever he's getting on it. Chiefs, are you guys going to lay the number here? 13, 46.5?
I'm not. No, I don't particularly look at Pittsburgh as any sort of threat to Kansas City, but this is a historic opening. There's been no team that's opened up this high for the wild card round in NFL history. The largest spread was actually the Saints last year against the Bears when they were the number 2 seed and Chicago was the number 7 seed. It ended up lucking themselves into the playoffs. Interestingly enough, the Saints ended up covering that spread by just 1 point, 21-9.
Which was interesting. They did not allow the Bears to kick the extra point. But anyway, go ahead.
I remember that game. Not that I bet it as a Bears fan, but I certainly remember that being a fairly interesting talking point. Mike Tomlin has been dominant in these spots over the course of his career. No coach has had a better record against the spread as an underdog. Like nobody. Like, we're talking about all the coaches in NFL history. Mike Tomlin has been that dude. He is 47, 23-3 as an underdog. He's covered more than 65% of his games. He's also the only coach to have a winning record straight up as an underdog. He's 38-37. Now, okay, the Pittsburgh Steelers are not going to go into Kansas City with this team, with this quarterback, and beat them. But can they keep it close? Can TJ Watt cause a lot of issues with Kansas City's offensive line? Yeah, he's been doing that all season with a bunch of other teams. So why can't he do it in Kansas City as well? It always felt like the Chiefs very rarely have both sides working effectively for them. One of those games this year was Pittsburgh, and they blew them out. That was one of the games that Tomlin did not cover as an underdog. This is one of those games where they're going to make adjustments, and I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I like the under here, even though Pittsburgh has had a bunch of issues stopping the run, but Kansas City doesn't like to commit to the run either. I think it's a low-scoring game. I like Pittsburgh to cover. 13 points is a lot of points, the historic number of points. And judging Mike Tomlin's record in this situation in times before, opportunities to make adjustments in a rematch game, Kansas City will win, but I do like Pittsburgh to cover here.
I think the Chiefs are going to kill them. Like I can't express. Well, if you told me the score is 44-6, I'd be like, yeah, I could see it happening.
We already saw it happen this year.
They just listen. I always get hesitant saying so, especially about the Chiefs, because it's always like, well, does this end up just being something that's like played on a loop for the rest of time? I have all the respect in the world for Tom, and I wrote in my column on Monday, I think he should be the coach of the year. Like I think he's done a tremendous job. The Steelers have a great pass rush. Watt, Hayward, Wormley's underrated. They literally do nothing else well. Nothing. They don't cover well. They don't stop the run. They can't run the ball on the offensive side. Najee Harris, everybody keeps pointing out this 1,200 yards. He's rushed for 3.9 yards a carry. And the offense throwing the ball, my God, he is so unbelievably washed up at this point. Their offensive line stinks. Like, I know Steelers fans, and I know a few of them who keep saying, well, why don't they throw the ball down the field? It's like, have you seen your quarterback? You can't throw the ball down the field. And the Chiefs know that. I just think, like, normally a 13-point spread in a playoff game, which as Ben mentioned, is historic. I would say, look, there's no way. I think this game is over by halftime. Like, I think this is a game. I don't think it'll be 44-6. I think it'll be like 30-10, where it's just one of these games where Kansas City gets out on. The problem Pittsburgh's going to have, to me, the Chiefs are going to get a lead in this game, and Roethlisberger's going to have to just start chucking it. And if that happens, this game is beyond over. Like, they will just tee off on him all game long. If the Steelers win this game, it is one of the biggest upsets in NFL history. Like, it really is. It really genuinely is. I know we're not talking about the Steelers just winning, but can they cover 13? Is there an outside shot at it? Sure. I think to Ben's point, it would have to be Watt just wrecking the game, a turnover or two, and it becomes one of these games where it's close. I just do not see it. I see our guy Jalen Butler saying Najee Harris is a problem. I don't think he is. They can't block. They can't block. The guy's running for less than 4 yards a carry. Like, I think Najee Harris is really talented. I just don't think it matters, because they can't block anybody. I think Kansas City is just gonna run them over. I do. I think they win this game by 20 points and they go to the divisionals.
Let's just all us NFL fans that have no real juice in this game and are not Chiefs and or Steelers fans, this sucks. It would be so much more fun if the Raiders were in Kansas City right now. I'd be looking forward to that game at least for 38% more. Yes, Ben?
Raiders, both times they played Kansas City, have had worse losses than the Steelers.
I know
that would be more likely to happen than Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh keeps it closer. I think it's less of a blowout with Pittsburgh than it is with the Raiders.
Woo! Hot take. But maybe you're right. I personally would rather watch the Raiders play football than watch the Steelers play football and go into it's hard to beat a team 3 times in 1 year type of conversation. I don't know. Although the Chiefs, whatever. Didn't they split with the Raiders? Am I remembering that right now?
The Chiefs beat the Raiders 89-20.
Oh, 89-23. We just said it 7,000 times. I just had my standard Carm at the end of the show brain fart. I apologize for that. Thank you very much. All right, Arizona and the Rams, Monday night. First of all, do you guys have a problem with the game being played Monday night?
I don't love it. I don't love it. I think it's unfair to the team.
It's so greedy. This is the playoffs. They should have equal rest. Come on, man. I hate it, but whatever. The Rams.
I don't even have that issue with it. My weird issue is that NBC is going to get a second game with a broadcast crew that I don't think has done any NFL games this year. When you have CBS only getting 1 game this week, No, I'm sorry. They get 2. Fox only gets 1. I mean, my guy Kevin Burkhardt's just sitting there waiting for an assignment. I think it would be a great opportunity for him to get a playoff game when everybody else is getting 2.
Hey, I like you shouting that out, Ben. Let's go. Let's get a big time crew in there. But all right, who do you like here? The Rams limping into the playoffs. Matthew Stafford looking all confused. That was an ugly ending for him. And now here comes Arizona, who's had their own share of issues at the end of the season. 4-point favorite though at home.
Yeah, I like them to bounce back. The Rams are one of those teams that I mentioned last week as a team that you buy low on heading into the postseason, because I do think they're built for postseason success. They can change the way they play on offense depending on where they go and who they play. If they're playing in Green Bay in frigid weather, they can be a dominant running team with Cam Akers now back and Sony Michel. If you need to play indoors on a track, Stafford can chuck it downfield with Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham. Their defense had some issues against San Francisco, but Kyle Shanahan has owned Sean McVay. He's beaten them outright the last 6 times. Conversely, I think the Cardinals might actually keep this game a little bit closer than most people think. Cliff Kingsbury, for whatever reason, has been a dominant coach on the road as an underdog over the last 3 years, despite him not being able to win games in the second half of seasons. They're limping in. I don't know the health of DeAndre Hopkins heading into this point. I do like the Rams, though, just because I feel like they were built to be a very good postseason team. You're going to start to see their stars really show up. I think a little bit of extra rest for Stafford will do him good. Kupp's been absolutely unstoppable, and I don't know on anybody on Arizona's side that's going to be able to shut him down. So I think the Rams win comfortably on Monday night, and I think they start to get themselves going. They're probably, if you're looking at dark horse teams in the NFC and also just in football to make a run at the postseason, I really think you have to consider the Rams this year, even with their struggles in the second half of the season.
So is it fair to say, like, you mentioned the Rams going to get the star power going. Like, can the Rams just ever start to get that going, like, at any point in time? Because it feels like they're 17-0 against the Niners. They're like, hey, wow, here they come. Nope, blow the game and lose. Like, just Stafford throws a couple of atrocious interceptions, and McVay, like sometimes it's Sean McVay, and I like him as a coach. There are times I look at him and I think, like, what in God's name is he doing? That game was one of them. The Niners are hitting Stafford every time he drops back. And yet there's no quick passes. It's a bunch of 5- and 7-step drops. And he's just getting him killed on all these longer routes that they're running. And the Niners are just running the ball down their throat. There's no adjustment by Morris in the second half of the game. I think the Cardinals are going to cover this game. Now, I don't love the Cardinals either. I think Kingsbury's a disaster in situational football. Murray has not been the same since he's come back. Defensively, they've fallen off. Seattle scored 1,000,000 points. I mean, hell, if the Cardinals win that game, they win the division. And yet they don't win the division because they can't be bothered to beat Seattle at home, as they're constantly giving up points. I am just taking the points in this game. I think the Rams win close. I do not love either team. The Rams do have a high ceiling, Ben. I agree with you on that. But, man, I just look at them sometimes, and for all the talent they have, like, would it shock anybody here if Stafford threw 4 picks and they lost this game?
No.
Like, it's always on the table with Stafford. You would never feel that way with Rodgers or Mahomes or Brady. And with Stafford, it's like, yeah, I could see him just throwing them right out of this game. Like, that's the thing that always worries me with him when he's involved. And that's why in a game where I think these two teams, like, I think the Rams are better, I'm taking the Cardinals because I think we're good for at least one throw in this game with Stafford where you just go, oh, my God, he threw it right at him. Like, and that'll be enough to keep the game close.
The DeAndre Hopkins part of this, he ain't playing, and if he is, he's not going to be DeAndre Hopkins.
Kingsbury said that they don't know if he's going to play, which tells me he's not playing, but we shall see.
You want a crazy Matthew Stafford stat before I leave this grandiose, wonderful show? Matthew Stafford in his career, our Reed Wallach came up with the stat over at BetSided. 31-50-2 against the spread against teams with winning records in his career, just 26-57 straight up. I know I'm in the minority on hoping that the Rams can figure something out heading in, just because I think the talent is there, and I like betting on talent in the postseason, especially when all of your chips are in. But that is a fairly damning statistic for Matthew Stafford, even though he spent a lot of years on bad teams in Detroit. But I'm hopeful in this particular matchup they can figure it out, because Arizona down the stretch, not good either.
Great ending there, Ben. we all wait for Monday night for one of those two teams just going to walk off into the sunset in a nauseating way. I mean, the Cardinals were the darling of the NFL for the first half of the season. The Rams are still, people hope they'll be the darling, I guess. But bottom line, Ben Heisler, great job as always, buddy.
Pleasure to see you both. Talk to you soon.
We'll see you after the wild card round.